Hi everyone, this video is going to show you how to create a split in your knitting so that you can create a bit of an overlapped edge. And I'm going to be demonstrating this for you on the pattern Lonely Souls from Great Northern. You can apply this sort of thing to any kind of split. I've also used it on sweater pattern Corona. It's one of my free pattern downloads that you can get. And what the pattern Lonely Souls asks you to do is to knit front and back into the stitch, and it asks you to do that 6 times, but when you knit front and back, it asks you to put the second created stitch on a holder at the back of your work. So this is something that is a little fiddly, and you're going to have to figure out how it's comfortable to fit in your hands and do this while you're working on it. As you see, I'm using a cable needle here. You can use whatever you want. I'm using this because it's a little bit bigger than the needles I have here, so it'll sit, it won't slide off as easily, but I can still manipulate it pretty easily. So you just knit front and back, and again, place the next stitch on the holder at the back. As you see, I'm trying to... I'll show you that a couple more times because it does sort of get a little trickier as you go along, because you want to keep the stitches in order on the needle at the back so that they line up, so that they match up nicely with the stitches at the front. So I'm sliding that second stitch onto the needle at the back there. So let me see if I can sort of arrange these so you can see how they're sort of growing out of each other and connected to each other. There. If you could see that. And the pattern for Lonely Souls asks you to do this 3 times, so, or sorry, 6 times. So I've done it 3, I need to do it 3 more times. So I'll finish those 3, and then I'll knit around the yoke of the sweater and get back to this point, because some people sometimes get confused about what to do when you return to this needle, because we were working in the round, and now we're going to start working flat. I've knit around the whole yoke now and returned to my beginning marker where I did the knit front back and put the second stitch on the needle behind here. So what some people seem to get a little confused by is what to do at this point, because up until this point we've been working in the round, and now is the magic point at which we're going to start working flat and actually create this little overlap here. So what I'm going to do is, instead of continuing on knitting from these stitches on the needle, which you would have done if you were knitting the round, I'm just going to knit from the needle at the back here. Knit these 6 stitches that I've created and put on the back. So I probably can just remove that and do whatever the stitch is that it asks you to do. In this case, I'm working in seed, so I'm going to be purl, knit, and again, it's going to be a little fiddly as you go along and do it, but that is how you can create an overlap. Fairly easy for a sweater. So in this case it's being used as a keyhole back. On Corona I used it as a split for the neckline so that I could have an overlapped cable. So now, as you see, I've come to an end here. These were my 6 that I created and put on the back, and at this point I'm going to turn my work like this, like as if it was any normal knit flat work, and work around this way, all the way around to the end, and then that's going to be my new beginning of round, and I'll flip it around this way and continue knitting like that. So the first few rounds of doing this part right here might be a bit tight, but after you work almost an inch, maybe a little bit less than that, it'll loosen up and it'll be absolutely easy to knit just as anything else. So I hope that was helpful so you could get a peek at what it looks like to split and create an overlap in your stitches. Thanks.